Hello viewers, my name is Maneli Silumbe from Unati High School. Welcome to the ECDoE Broadcasting Studio. Today's lesson is about human resources function. I will be covering this topic for your full understanding. I've tried to summarize all the topics that we'll be covering today. The first one is recruitment, selection, induction, placement, salary determination, and fringe benefits. Let's go to the first one. I always advise my learners that they should always start with the exam guide. The exam guideline is helping our learners to understand what is the outcome that they should know at the end of the lesson. It also help them that during their exams, what is expected of them. The first one is recruitment. The first bullet says explain or elaborate on the meaning of recruitment, outline or explain the recruitment procedure. First of all, candidates should understand what is it that they are talking about. The entire topic is about human resources. So which means that the business or the organization or the company is responsible for recruiting employees. So there are certain procedures that they should follow in order for the business to function optimally. The third bullet says, explain the meaning of job analysis. In that bullet, the third one, the moment a candidate sees that word or that concept, job analysis, they should know that there are two concepts that are attached to it. We'll get to that as soon as in our next slide. The next one says, differentiate or distinguish between job description and job specification as components of a job analysis. Those two, the job description and job analysis, are the vital or the most important components when you talk about job analysis. This next bullet says, identify job description and job specification from given statements or given scenarios. As we all know that in section B in our question papers, there are always scenarios. So a candidate has to be able or to be well equipped that he or she can identify or differentiate or choose from a given scenario the statement that is talking about job specification or the statement that is talking about job description. The next one, identify methods of recruitment, which is internal and external recruitment from given scenarios or statements. Now, during this process of recruitment, a business can decide that they want to use internal recruitment or external recruitment, depending on what they need for the business, since they have a vacant position. The next one says, explain or discuss or analyze the impact or the advantages or disadvantages of the above stated methods of recruitment. The last bullet says, identify or give example of sources of internal or external recruitment from given scenarios. So the moment you see that it says sources of internal or external recruitment from given scenarios, so learners must be able to understand what is it that when you talk about internal and what is it when you talk about external recruitment. And there are also sources that are attached to those. The negatives. I'm going to say this again, ladies and gentlemen, or candidates. You don't have to write the word negative, or you don't have to write the word disadvantages. As the moment you see the word impact, unless they ask you to write only positives or write only negatives, which is very rare. But the moment you see that you are asked to write the impacts, you don't have to write the word negative. Whether it's an essay or in section B, you just have to write the impacts and you go straight to the points. And you don't have to, you can mix them up. You can start with a positive, the second one a negative, start with a negative, it doesn't matter. As long as your points are under impacts, you don't have to write that word. Now, the first bullet says, current employees may not bring new ideas into the business, or limited idea generation from current employees. But remember, if you promote someone, we are talking about internal recruitment. If you promote someone who is currently working for the company, he or she is used in the ways that you do things within the organization. So there won't be any new ideas that are coming in, or he or she will be scared to come up with new ideas. Some superiors may say, just because now you are promoted, you are trying to change things. So he or she will be doing things the way they've been done million years ago. Now, let's move to the second bullet. Promoting a current employee may cause resentment amongst existing or other employees. That one, I think, is simply jealousy. Let's say you started together with an employee or a candidate, or you got to that particular job whilst they were working for the company. But now, since let's say you got lucky and you got promoted and you got there a bit late, or they think they are better than you and you get a promotion. So some staff members may feel like, why is this new guy or a new lady is promoted and I was still working for the company? There is an example, but I won't mention the company. There was a certain individual in a company I used to work for. He would say, that manager, he's so young. I used to train him in this department, but now he's a manager. So that means there is a bit of resentment. There is a bit of jealousy. It might create that, because remember, we are talking about the negatives. So it might negatively impact in the organization or other employees. The number of applicants is limited to current staff only, or limited pool of applicants. So this point now, remember, we are doing internal recruitment. That means only people who are working for the company are allowed to apply for that particular or that vacant position. So that's why we see the word limited there. That's why we see the words limited pool of applicants. Because let's say the company, the company has 70 employees, only 10 employees are interested in that particular position. They are the only ones who will apply for it. Employees who do not have the required skills for the new job may be promoted. You can imagine they do not have required skills. You can imagine someone who doesn't have the necessary skills and they are promoted to a superior position or a managerial position. Now they become your boss. It might create a conflict. Current employees may need to be trained or developed before they can be promoted, which can be expensive. Expensive and time consuming. If you remember this point, we do have this point, but as an advantage, because we did say it is less expensive since you know the strengths and weaknesses of the current employee. But now, if you are using the internal recruitment and you get to that point, certain employee doesn't have maybe certain skills, so you need to improve those skills. It would get to that point, it can be expensive for the company, and also it can be time consuming. I'm going to say this again. The moment you see these strokes, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you choose either expensive or time consuming. You don't have to write both of those words when you are responding to questions. Let's move to the next bullet. Employees who are not promoted may feel demotivated, which may hamper productivity and reduce morale. Imagine if people are jealous of your promotion. Now, they might feel that they were supposed to get the position and they didn't get the promotion or the managerial position, that might have a negative impact within the organization, and it does reduce the morale. Those are the few things that might cause a conflict within the organization, and we need to try by all means to avoid such. And we also need to look at the positive side, because people are being promoted who are currently working for the company. And the other thing is, you can, outside of this, the business image might increase, especially if a company is using or is promoting the people who are working for the company. Let's move to the next slide. External recruitment. Sources of external recruitment. The first one, printed media, for example, newspapers, flyers, or magazines. I did say to you guys, especially if a company is going to use newspapers, remember newspapers, we are talking about external recruitment. A company now has to pay the newspaper that they are going to use to advertise their vacant positions. The magazines, the flyers, which is more expensive for the company, but we're still going to get to that when it comes to the impacts. Then there is electronic media such as radio or TV. A company can use the electronic media. They can choose radio or television, which is more expensive as well. Social media, which is social networks, internet, business websites. If you remember on our previous slides when we were talking about internal recruitment, there was intranet. Now we are talking about, I know intranet, people are not familiar with intranet, but I did say to you guys that intranet is a private internet, if we can put it that way. Only people who are working for that particular company can have access to that. But since we are talking about external recruitment now, we are talking about internet. Everyone has access to internet as long as you are capable or fit enough to use it. You can, as a company, you can use internet for vacant positions. And there is also business websites. Each company does have a website. So which means outside people can access it through Google or internet. They can access that and then they can see that there are vacant positions for that particular business, particular company. Then there are recruitment agencies. They are also expensive because a company has to pay that company to get suitable candidates for the vacant position that they have. Then there are walk-ins. Sometimes if you're lucky, you can bring in your CVs and then then they say, okay, give us your CV and then we're going to see if we can employ you, because still remember, we're talking about human resources function. There are also interviews. Sometimes if you're walk-in, you can get a job easily. Now, the difference between the internal and external recruitment, you can see the next bullet. It just says headhunting. Remember, in internal recruitment, I did say that you must say headhunting within the organization or within the business. So that's the difference between the two. Then there's also professional associations whereby you do know each other. Networking, you are in a meeting somewhere and then you are discussing things to other people and they see that, okay, I do have a vacant position. They do say, okay, we do have a vacant position. You can apply if such individuals, they do qualify. But remember, you don't just qualify, there is job specification and job description. Educational or training institutions, posters, posters, billboards, just outside the business. You can write posters or you write billboards. Remember, I did say to you guys, the moment you see this, you don't have to write both. If you write both, let's say you are asked to give 3 examples of external recruitment and you write posters, the first one you write posters, the second one you write billboards, you will only get 1 mark there. You will get the 1 mark for posters if you started with posters, and then for billboards you will get R, which is the repetition. Let's move to the next slide. Now we are going to talk about the impact. I'm repeating this to you, candidates. The moment you see the word impact, you don't have to write the word positive or advantages. So which means you can mix them up. If you are asked for the impacts of external recruitment, you can mix the negatives and the positive. If you are asked the internal, the impact of internal recruitment. You can write the positive and negatives. You can just mix them up, as long as you don't have to write the word positive, or you don't have to write the word negative. You just write impacts, you mix them up. Your teacher will give you marks. I'm telling you that. New candidates bring new talents, ideas, experiences, skills, knowledge into the business. Remember, there is a similar point in internal recruitment. On this one, since you are coming from outside, because remember we said external, that means whoever is employed for that particular position is taken from outside. He or she was not working for the company. Now he or she is employed. That's why at that point that it says new candidates bring new talents. That means you are not using the old way that this current company has been using. You are coming up with fresh and new ideas, new experience, skills, knowledge. Whatever company you are working for, that means now you are bringing those skills, those necessary skills, that talent into the new company, and then the functionality of the company will be productive. It may help the business to meet affirmative action. This is not the first time you see the word affirmative. In EEA, at the beginning of the year, you saw that word. Affirmative action and triple BEE targets. There is a large pool of candidates from which to choose. Let's take this point. It says there is a large pool. That means for that vacant position, there might be hundreds or even thousands of applicants, which is an advantage. You can choose from different applicants. This point, keep that point in mind. You will also get to similar point like this one into the negatives. The negative. External sources can be expensive. Remember, I did say to you guys, there is newspapers, there is recruitment agencies, there is posters, billboards. That means they are more expensive for the company, which will cost the company. It can be expensive for example, recruitment agencies, fees or advertisements in the newspapers and magazines. The selection process may result in an ineffective or incompetent candidate being chosen. Remember, let me get to the second bullet because I'll talk about these bullets just now. Information on CVs or references may not be reliable or may be falsified. Remember, there are some people when in their CVs, they might spice them up so you get impressed, only to find out the experience that they've said they have on their CVs. They don't have those. And the references you called, maybe it's their cousins, or maybe you are calling them, it's just that they write a different number. So which means when you ask about their work experience, that means they will give you a false information. So as companies need to be aware of that. New candidates generally take longer to adjust. They generally take longer to adjust to a new work environment. Remember, this new person coming in, he or she might take longer because he or she is not used to the company or to the processes and systems of the current company or he or she is employed in. So it might take some time for him or her to settle. Many unsuitable applicants may slow down the selection process. So which means, remember I said there is a large pool to choose from. It was saying as an advantage, but it also is a disadvantage because some people will say into their CV they do have this experience, they do have the necessary skills, they do have the talent, only to find out they don't have that. And some people may not qualify and yet they do apply. And you get a pack of CVs or thousands or hundreds of CVs and you only need 2 people or maybe 1 person. So it might take or it might slow down the selection process because you have to go through as many as many CVs as you can so that you get the suitable candidate. Now, the topic we're going to talk about is selection procedure. Let's start with an exam guideline so that candidates do understand what is needed at the end of the lesson or what is required of them when they do respond in their exams. Outline or discuss or explain the selection procedure. Explain the meaning of screening as part of the selection procedure. Discuss or explain the purpose of an interview. Outline or explain or discuss the role of the interviewer before and during the interview. Outline or explain or discuss the role of the interviewee during the interview. Define or elaborate on the meaning of an employment contract. Name, outline, or state the details or aspects or contents of an employment contract. Outline or explain or discuss the legal requirements or legalities of the employment contract. Analyze an employment contract from given scenarios and make recommendations for improvement. Name or outline or explain or discuss the reasons for the termination of an employment contract. There is an important thing that I will discuss with you guys when it comes to the reasons of termination of the contract. Remember, now we're getting into the selection. The selection choosing a qualified candidate or applicant for an available post based on the requirements of job analysis. Selection procedure, the process that needs to be followed before appointments are made. Remember, the first bullet, it does talk to us about job analysis. Remember, job analysis, I did say to you guys, there's a job specification and job description. So by taking those CVs, remember in our previous slide, we spoke about CVs. So you have this number of CVs. Now you have to do a selection. That means you have to select. There is a word there, select. You have to select the suitable or potential employees for that particular position. Now, the first one, it says selection procedure. Selection procedure has two options, option 1 and option 2. I'm saying this again, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to write the word option 1. You don't have to write the word option 2. If a question is asking for selection procedure, you can just write, you can go straight to the points. If you mix them up for option 1 or option 2, we spray the marks there. The first bullet, determine fair assessment criteria on which selection will be based. Conduct preliminary interviews. That means there are so many candidates or applicants or application forms or CVs at hand. So a company feels that there are so many people who qualify for this particular position. So they have to do a pre-interview. That means it's an interview before an interview. It's just that they want to get an insight. They want to give a chance to more people who can be fit for that particular position or that vacant position. Inform all applicants about the outcome of the application. Compile a shortlist of approximately 5 candidates. Invite shortlisted candidates or applicants for an interview. Once the candidates have been selected, a written offer is made to them. There are so many ways that companies do when it comes to this regard. And remember, I didn't take all the points. I just chose a few points that I feel like they are short and they are much easier for candidates to remember when they are being asked in their exams. And the other thing you must keep in mind, sometimes I might say to you guys, these are the easy points or bullets for option 1, which is the selection procedure. Sometimes some candidates may feel like these points I've chosen, they are not suitable for them. I always advise my candidates that you have to choose points that are suitable for you, that you understand much better, because not all the points might be suitable for you. You just have to choose the points that are suitable for you. There's that point, invite the shortlisted applicants or candidates for an interview. We're still going to get to the interview, but in this process, we are just selecting the people that meet the required standards or the set standards or the minimum requirements that are needed by the company. Option 2, I'm saying this again, when it comes to selection procedure, you don't have to write the word option 1 or option 2. If you decide to mix them up, let's say you know 1 point from option 1 and you know 3 points in option 2, you write the points that you remember as long as they are under selection procedure. The first point, conduct interviews with shortlisted candidates. A written employment offer is made to the selected candidate or candidates. Receive documentation, for example, application forms, and sort it according to the criteria of the job. Evaluate CVs and create a shortlist or screen the applicants. This whereby you are going through the CVs. As you can see, the next point, it says check information in the CVs and contact references. The moment you receive those, you see that these particular candidates, they do qualify or they do meet the minimum requirements for the position at hand. So it is your responsibility as a company to make sure that you do your screening, you go through their qualifications, you contact their references, as so that you get a confirmation from the previous companies that they've worked for. And remember, I did say this, sometimes some people might falsify the information in their CVs. So it's whereby, when you select them and you speak to them directly, maybe it's telephonically or via interviews over the phone, but as long as you speak to them so that you ask questions about the position that is vacant, so to see that they do qualify for this, or they are fit enough for this vacant position. Conduct preliminary interviews to identify applicants who are not suitable for the job. It's whereby you are in contact with the applicants, because remember, they just gave you CVs. Now you have to do some interviews to talk to them, ask them questions about the vacant position, and see if whatever experience or the qualifications they've put up in their application forms, it is true or not. Screening as part of the selection procedure. Check application documents of candidates or applicants, which is whereby you are going through their forms now, or CVs or application forms, against the requirements of the job. Remember, you did put out on your advertisement, you did put out your job specification and your job description. So now you are going through their documentations. Are they really meeting the required standards by the business or for the job? It's whereby you are going through that. Candidates or applicants who meet the minimum requirements are separated from others. It's whereby you separate men from the boys, because you have to choose the individuals or applicants that meet what is required by the business. You separate the CVs. Conduct or perform background or credit reference checks of applicants who qualify for the job. Prepare a short list of suitable candidates after screening. After you've went through that process whereby you check everyone, It's whereby now you shortlist. Let's say you had 500 CVs, and then all the applicants that meet the minimum requirements for the job, you remove them from the rest. You prepare a short list of suitable candidates after screening. Purpose of an interview. After you've selected all the individuals or applicants that you see that they do meet the requirements, there is an interview that must take place. Matches information provided by the applicant to the job requirement is whereby you match now. You want to see whatever was provided by the applicant in their CVs. You actually speak to them and see and find out if it is true or they are not quite sure about their story. Evaluates the skills or personal characteristics, qualities of the applicant. By doing interviews, you actually speaking to the person. Now you want to see their type of character. What are the skills that they have? Are the qualities of the applicant? And the other one, the next bullet, verifies to a certain degree the accuracy regarding the information presented on CV. And the last one, gathers information about the strengths, weaknesses of each candidate, and that one, the accuracy. In other words, you are just checking if the information that was given on CVs is exactly what is, with the moment is accurate, is true or not, or is not true. You're just checking those. Now, the role of the interviewer before and during the interview. Now, the one that we will start with is before. It says the role of interviewer. That means the person who is conducting the interviews. Before, what is it that this person does? Remember, you were selected and you still don't know that, or you were informed. But the interviewer, there are certain things that he or she must do. The role of the interviewer before the interview. The interviewer should develop a core set of questions based on the skills or knowledge or abilities, or competencies required. So which means you cannot just, remember, is preparing what? Core set of questions. All the questions that must be asked during the interview, they must be questions that are related to the vacant position. You can't have a certain position and you asking during the interview, ask about a different position. So all the questions must be based on the necessary skills, the knowledge, abilities, and competencies. You want to see if this person is competent enough, is fit enough for the job at hand. Check the application, verify the CV of every candidate for anything that may need to be explained. Sometimes when you look at CVs, there might be information or something that you're not quite sure what is it that they were saying or what is it that was stated on the CV. So during interviews is whereby they will clarify anything. So whatever questions you have, whatever clarity that is needed, they can answer themselves. But you are still preparing this. It is not the interviews you're getting ready, you're just taking note of what is it that is not clear, so that during the interview, you will be able to ask them this. Book and prepare the venue for the interview. I always feel like this is the easiest point. It is before you book the venue, before you prepare the venue before the interview. So sometimes the candidates, they do confuse the before and during. But sometimes you have to look at the point. You can't say you are preparing or you are booking the venue during the interview. It doesn't make sense. So the moment you see the word before, is what is it that you do before an interview? Set the interview date. There is no way you can also write that point during interview, because you are setting a date before interviews takes place. Ensure that all interviews take place on the same date if possible. It also depends on the number of candidates that you can do interviews on the same date, or sometimes, since the number of applicants is quite large, so you cannot do that. That's why in the last part of that sentence it says if possible. The last bullet says allocate the same amount of time to interview each candidate on the program. So which means you can't have a favoritism whereby I like this candidate, I must have more time for him or her, or this candidate must be given more time because he is related to anyone who's working for the company. No. If you are giving candidates 10 minutes for the interviews, it must be 10 minutes to everyone that will be partaking in those interviews. Let's move the role of the interviewer during the interview, which is what now we're moving to during. Allocate the same amount of time to each candidate. If you're giving 10 minutes to everyone, you give everyone 10 minutes. Introduce members of the interviewing panel to each candidate or interviewee. Please don't confuse this interviewee, interviewer, interview. You just, if you're not sure about this word, you choose candidate. If you're not sure about candidate, you choose interviewee, as long as you choose the word that is suitable for you. Make the interviewee feel at ease. Sometimes you get nervous before interviews, so you must make sure that it is your responsibility as an interviewer to make sure that the interviewee or the candidate, you look at him or her and see that he or she is nervous. So make sure you try by all means to ease the process for him or her, because sometimes if you're nervous, there are some things that might not come out quite the way you planned. So it is a responsibility of the interviewer that try by all means and make sure that the interviewee or the candidate is comfortable enough to state his or her story. Explain the purpose of the interview to the panel and the interviewee. Record the responses of interviewees for future references. So this is quite an important point whereby you have to record, because whatever answers they give, there is a CV or the application form, then you interview. So you have to keep those. If there are any queries in a long run or in the future, you can go back directly and say, this is what this particular candidate or interviewee has stated during the interviews. Do not misinform or mislead the interviewee. In other words, you don't have to lie to them. Give them accurate information. Provide an opportunity for the interviewee to ask questions. So you have to give him or her some time so that whatever questions or anything that they want to ask, then they can ask. I always advise candidates that question, you can also show that you were interested in a company. Let's say before you go to an interview as an interviewee, you do some research about the company so that they do know you are interested. It might impress the panel members that certain candidate is interested in our company. Do some research so that when you are given that opportunity, it's whereby you can ask questions about the company. Close the interview by thanking the interviewee for attending the interview. Pose the same set of questions to all candidates. Please, as an interviewer, you have to have same questions for all the interviewees or the candidates. You cannot keep on changing questions, say this is difficult for them or this might be difficult for them. You just give them the same questions, same amount of time, to be fair. The role, which is now, we were talking about interviewer. Now we are talking about interviewee during the interview. Greet the interviewer by name with a solid handshake and a friendly smile. I'm smiling because our candidates, they do confuse sometimes that point. But at least make sure that this is during the interview, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't write this when you are asked for before. It makes no sense for you to say greet the interviewer. If you are saying before, where are you meeting this interviewer? You must make sure that first point, especially that first point, it's so clear. Greet the interviewer by name, because remember, you were communicating with the interviewer before, because he or she is the one who contacted you that on a certain date in a particular place, you will be having an interview at what time. So when you get there, you have to greet him or her by name with a solid handshake. You don't just do handshakes like you in the streets. Yeah. Listen carefully to the questions before responding. Sometimes when you're not quite sure about the answer, you're giving yourselves some time. You just ask again, because you have to listen carefully. You're just thinking, okay, you don't want to be in a situation whereby you respond incorrectly to the question. That is it for this part, for the human resources management. Please join me for the next segment. We have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments. Don't forget to leave the name of your school so we give shout outs. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. See you on our next lesson.